You ever have one of those moments where time feels like it slows down, just long enough for something to snap into place? That was me, standing in our kitchen with Megan's tablet in one hand and an envelope of documents in the other. The envelope had nothing to do with her. It was some boring property paperwork I'd brought home from the office. But it's weird how, when your life starts to fall apart, the most ordinary things become the setting for the most unordinary discoveries. That's where I was, just trying to get a jump on tomorrow's work when her tablet lit up on the counter. Usually, I wouldn't have looked. I wasn't the kind of husband who snooped. I didn't want to be. But that night something felt off. I had just heard her upstairs, getting ready. I assumed it was for her usual Thursday night dinner with the team, some sort of culture-building initiative her firm had started doing once a month. Dinner and drinks after hours, paid for by the company. Nothing unusual. Except this time something was different. Her heels had that deliberate, confident rhythm on the hardwood floor upstairs. And I remember thinking to myself, that's new. That sound used to make me smile. Now it made my chest tighten. Then I heard the water run, then stop. The sound of the mirror cabinet closing. The blow dryer short and quick. It was her whole getting ready routine, but polished, practiced. Too put together for a casual dinner with coworkers, especially for someone who used to throw her hair in a clip and call it a day. When her tablet buzzed, I glanced at it. One calendar notification. It read, "Dinner with Brian 7:30 at Pharaoh's." Just like that. No team dinner. No group chat about who's coming. Just Brian. First name only, as if that were enough context for her. Or like she didn't think she needed to hide it. Brian. The name clicked instantly. I'd heard it before once or twice. Maybe more than I realized. Always tossed into conversation like it didn't matter. Like he was just part of the scenery. Oh, Brian helped me organize that last-minute bid. Or Brian was the one who caught the mistake on the invoice. That kind of thing. No last name. No details. Back then, I didn't ask questions. I figured I was doing the right thing, being the trusting husband. Not controlling. Not paranoid. Giving her space. But now, I felt like an idiot for not noticing the pattern sooner. The moment hung there like a suspended breath. And the weirdest thing? I didn't feel angry yet. I just felt hollow. Like something inside me had quietly died. She came downstairs a few minutes later. New heels. A dress I hadn't seen before. Definitely not from her usual rotation. Dark forest green with a cut just a little too elegant for an office dinner. Subtle, but it made a statement. Her hair was styled, not just brushed. Lipstick, light perfume. Every detail chosen. And not for me. I said, "You look nice." She barely looked at me. "Thanks. It's just a dinner. Don't wait up, I might be late." She grabbed her coat and keys. No goodbye kiss. No love you. Not even a smile. Just walked out like it was any other night. I stood there, in the same spot, for another few minutes after the door shut. Listening to the silence. Listening to my own heartbeat get louder. The calendar notification still lit up on her tablet. I reread it 3 times before flipping the screen off. Dinner with Brian. The Pharaoh's, no less. Pharaoh's is not where people go to discuss spreadsheets and quarterly projections. It's where couples go on anniversaries. Where the wine list comes in a leather binder. Where you spend more on appetizers than you do on a week of groceries. I didn't confront her when she got home. Not right away. I wanted to see if she'd bring it up on her own. I sat on the couch, TV on low volume, pretending to be half asleep. She walked in around 11:20. Smelled like a different version of her. More floral, more expensive. Her eyes flicked toward me, like she wasn't sure if I was awake. She set her keys down quietly, like she didn't want to be heard. I closed my eyes halfway, just enough to keep watching her. She tiptoed past me and disappeared into the bathroom. I heard water running, makeup being wiped off. Then nothing. The next morning, she acted like everything was normal. Coffee in hand, a light morning. And off she went to check her email. No mention of dinner. No mention of Brian. No mention of anything. That's when I realized I had to say something. I wasn't going to pretend anymore. That night after dinner, I brought it up. Hey, I said, trying to sound casual. How was the team dinner? She didn't look up. Good. I waited. Anyone I know go? She looked at me then, for the first time all evening. What's with the questions? I kept my tone even. Just curious. You said it was a team dinner, right? She blinked. Yeah. Why? I saw something, I said slowly, on your calendar. It said, dinner with Brian. There was a beat of silence. Her face shifted just slightly, but enough. And then she went on the offensive. Oh my God, she said, setting her glass down with a thud. Seriously? What? You went through my calendar now? It was on the tablet. Popped up. So now you're checking my devices? Watching where I go? Jesus. Nick. I didn't go looking, I said more firmly now. It lit up. That's all. And I asked because it didn't match what you said. She shook her head, scoffing. You know what? This is the problem. You don't trust me. Every time I step out of the house, you think I'm doing something shady. That's not true. Isn't it? She snapped. This isn't about dinner, Nick. This is about you. Your paranoia. Your control issues. I stared at her. I didn't lie, she added. Brian is on my team. You act like it was some romantic date or something. You didn't mention his name at all. Because I knew you'd act like this. Look at yourself right now, you're interrogating me over dinner. I let the silence hang. Let her words settle in the air between us. This was how it always started, wasn't it? I had come to her with a calm question. Not an accusation. Not even a demand. Just a hey, this doesn't add up. But instead of answering, she flipped it. Made me the issue. Suddenly it was about my suspicion. My insecurities. My failure to just blindly believe whatever she told me. You used to be fun, she said finally. You used to be easy to talk to. That one stung. She got up and started clearing the table like the conversation was over. Like the issue had been successfully buried under a pile of deflection and gaslighting. And the part that really messed with my head? A small part of me started to wonder if she was right. Was I being paranoid? Had I overreacted? Was it really just dinner? That's the trap. That's how it happens. You get a gut feeling. You ask a reasonable question. And they twist it until you're the villain. And you start to doubt what you saw with your own eyes. But I saw the calendar entry. I saw the dress. I saw how hard she tried to make me feel like the bad guy for simply noticing something wasn't right. I didn't say anything else that night. Didn't press her. Didn't argue. I just watched her. And deep down I knew. This wasn't nothing. This was the first crack in the glass. And once it starts to spread, you can't stop it. You can pretend. You can deny. You can talk yourself into believing it'll all be fine. But once that trust starts to bleed out, it doesn't come back. Not without answers. Not without truth. And I had the sick feeling that Megan wasn't going to give me either. After that night, I stopped asking direct questions. It wasn't because I got answers. It was because I finally understood I wasn't going to get any. What I got instead were pivots, distractions, half-truths delivered with enough confidence to make me second-guess myself. And that feeling, the one that started in my gut that Thursday night, didn't go away. It spread, quietly, like mold under fresh paint. I started noticing things I'd ignored before. The way Megan's phone was always flipped face down now. Always. At dinner, on the nightstand, even when she'd go to the bathroom, it stayed within reach but never face up. The ringer was off. The vibration, too. At first, I told myself she was just being respectful. Focused. Trying to be present. Like she used to say. But the truth was, she never used to care if it buzzed. She was always an open book kind of texter. Now she treated every notification like a classified document. Then there were the new passwords. One evening, I walked past her while she was working on her laptop. She closed the screen the moment she saw me in the hallway. Like a reflex, I didn't even say anything. I was just grabbing water. Later that night, I tried logging into our shared streaming account and got locked out. Password had been changed. Email too. She didn't tell me. Just did it. Quietly. Without explanation. Sounds small, but it wasn't. It was like she was slowly cutting me out of things I didn't even know I wasn't allowed to access anymore. She also started leaving at oddly precise times. Like, exactly 6:30. Every Tuesday. Every other Thursday. And always on nights when she knew I had to work late or had something scheduled. It was like she had memorized my calendar and worked around it. It was when I stopped looking for patterns that I started seeing them everywhere. Like the way she suddenly became obsessed with the gym. I mean, Megan's always been healthy, sure, but this was different. New clothes, new routines, protein shakes, morning jogs, late-night yoga classes she never used to care for, and new lingerie, which would have been great if I had ever seen it. I didn't. I found it in the laundry, twice. Different sets, both of them expensive. Tags still attached the first time. Washed the second. Neither were ever worn around me. That was when I stopped trying to convince myself I was imagining things. There was also the Denver conference. She left for 3 days, said it was an annual thing. Her company sends out a couple of representatives, they network, attend workshops, build client relationships. Standard stuff. I remember kissing her goodbye at the airport. She was wearing a black coat, wheeling a sleek little carry-on she'd bought just for the trip. "Love you," she said, and I said it back. But it felt routine. Not real. Just something we said out of habit. The strange part wasn't the trip itself. It was how different she seemed when she came back. I met her at the gate, flowers in hand. She smiled when she saw me. Polite, warm, but not like before. Her hugs used to linger. This one didn't. She seemed tired, distant, but underneath that, almost energized. Like someone who had finally done something they'd been planning for a while. That night, I asked about the conference. She gave me bullet points. Networking, keynote speaker, late-night team dinner. But there were no stories, no real details, just a vague sketch of how it went. And then, she got quiet. I remember her sitting at the edge of the bed, brushing her hair, saying nothing. I wanted to ask more, but something held me back. It was like I was afraid of what she might say, or worse, what she wouldn't. Later that week, we were making dinner together. Something simple, pasta, I think. She was chopping vegetables while I was scrolling through some article on my phone, and she said something about a new contractor her firm was bringing in to help with post-conference implementation. "Brian," she said, "from the Denver event. He's sharp." My stomach sank. She said it too casually, like she meant for it to go unnoticed. But I remembered that name. Brian. Dinner with Brian. The one from her calendar weeks ago. The one she deflected so hard it left me doubting my own memory. I didn't say anything, just nodded and kept stirring the sauce. But everything clicked. Denver. Brian. The change in her energy. It all lined up in the worst possible way. It wasn't just one thing anymore. It was all of them. Pattern. A trajectory. And I had to face the truth. Megan was no longer living fully in our marriage. At best, she was halfway out the door. At worst, she'd already crossed the line. I didn't know how far it had gone yet. I didn't know if I wanted to. But I did start writing things down. Dates, times, comments, behavior. Not because I wanted to catch her, but because I needed to remind myself I wasn't crazy. That this wasn't all in my head. There's a kind of loneliness that comes when the person lying next to you feels miles away. It's not quiet. It's not peaceful. It's loud. A ringing silence. A constant hum of what's missing. That's what the next few weeks felt like. Every morning we woke up like normal. She brewed her coffee. I made eggs. We talked about traffic and deadlines and grocery lists. We moved through our days like actors on a stage, hitting marks and reciting lines. But none of it felt real. She stopped texting me during the day. I used to get little messages. Memes. A quick "thinking of you" or "can't wait for dinner." They were rare now, and when they came, they were forced. Once she texted me, "Busy day. Let's do something fun this weekend." Smiley face, but she didn't follow up. That weekend came and went. She ended up spending it catching up on work, locked in her office. Then there was her birthday. I planned the usual dinner, her favorite restaurant, ordered her favorite dessert. Got her the earrings she'd bookmarked 3 months earlier. Rose gold, minimalist, expensive. I thought it might bring something back. Didn't. She smiled. Thanked me. But it was the kind of gratitude you give a stranger who holds the door open. Courteous. Polite. Hollow. When we got home, I poured wine and put on music like we used to. She sat next to me on the couch but spent most of the night checking her phone. And when I kissed her, she turned her head, said she was tired, went to bed early. I sat there alone, staring at her half-finished wineglass, and knew, whatever we were, it wasn't us anymore. One night I woke up around 2 a.m. and found her gone. Not just out of bed, gone. Her car wasn't in the driveway. No note. No text. She came back around 3:30, tiptoeing inside like a teenager who'd missed curfew. When I asked where she'd been, she mumbled something about needing air. Said she drove around. That she couldn't sleep. I nodded, said nothing. But I saw the makeup that hadn't been there before bed. I smelled the perfume. She tried to look tired. But her eyes were alive. Glowing. Like someone who had just gotten something they didn't want to give up. It was that night that something inside me shifted. The denial cracked. The illusions fell away. All the little lies, the inconsistencies, the energy she kept trying to bury. It was all in the open now, even if she wouldn't say it out loud. I started sleeping in the guest room, telling her I was having back pain. She didn't protest, didn't ask why, just nodded and said, okay. Like it was a relief. We stopped hugging, stopped kissing, stopped touching at all. She had become a roommate, a ghost, smiling when she needed to, going through the motions. But the connection, the real connection, was gone. Replaced by something colder, quieter, a slow fade. And still I hadn't confronted her. Not because I didn't want to, but because I wanted to be sure. I wanted one moment, clear, undeniable. Something that would finally make me stop hoping this was all just in my head. That moment was coming. And deep down I knew it. There's a difference between suspecting something and seeing it with your own eyes. Between doubt and proof. Between fear and fact. And I crossed that line on a Friday night I'll never forget. Megan had told me she was going out with the girls. Her exact words. It's just a night out, she said, pulling on a black jacket and sliding earrings into her ears. God, I need this. I watched her from the kitchen as she twisted in the mirror near the front door, checking the back of her outfit. Tight jeans, new boots, hair down, makeup on point, lipstick I hadn't seen in weeks. She looked amazing, but not for me. Still, I nodded and said, have fun, like a good husband. She flashed me a smile, brief and sharp. Don't wait up. And she was gone. I stood there for a long time after the door shut, staring at the empty hallway. I wanted so badly to believe her, that it really was a girls' night, that my gut was just overreacting again, that everything I'd felt over the last few weeks was nothing but nerves and overthinking. But then I opened her laptop. I know, I shouldn't have. I hated myself for even reaching for it. But something told me this was it. Tonight was the night I'd get the answer I'd been dancing around for too long. The screen was open to Google Maps. The last searched location, Ember. I knew the place. Upscale lounge. Downtown. Not exactly a girls hanging out kind of bar. At least not unless the girls were 25, single, and looking to flirt with men in slim-fit suits. I grabbed my keys. I don't know what I thought I was doing. I wasn't even sure I was going to walk inside. But my hands moved before my brain caught up, and before long, I was parking 2 blocks away from Ember's glowing red neon sign. I waited outside first, leaning against a cold brick wall across the street, watching, trying to breathe, trying to decide whether I even wanted to know. But eventually I walked in. The place was packed. Loud music pulsed through the floorboards. Glasses clinked. Laughter carried over the sound of deep bass and conversation. I scanned the crowd, one face at a time, trying not to be obvious. And then I saw her, tucked into a corner booth, back slightly arched, head thrown back in laughter, a drink in her hand. She was with a group of people, 3 women I didn't recognize, and across from her, Brian. I didn't know what I expected him to look like. But there he was. Early 40s, sharp jawline, expensive-looking watch, smug posture. The kind of guy who plays confident like a game. The kind who knows exactly what he's doing. I don't think she saw me. I stayed behind a beam, half in shadow. Just close enough to hear pieces of the conversation when they got loud enough. "He'd never even notice," she said at one point, grinning. Her voice had that loose, wine-smooth tone I hadn't heard in years. Carefree, flirty, not like herself. Or maybe exactly like herself now. One of the women said something and Megan responded, "Oh, I'm practically single at this point. We haven't had S*X in, I don't know, months?" I froze. Brian leaned in, elbow on the table, smirking like he was eating it up, and she kept going. She said I was boring, that I was obsessed with work, that I micromanaged her day. She told them I still packed her lunch sometimes like a middle schooler, and they all laughed like it was the funniest thing they'd ever heard. I stood there, still sick to my stomach. They were mocking our marriage, like it was some old sitcom, like I was the punchline. She didn't defend me. She led the jokes. They were all drinking, touching, sharing glances like teenagers. At one point, Brian reached over and put his hand on her knee, casually, like it was a habit. And she didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't pull away. She leaned in and said something into his ear, something I couldn't hear, but it made him laugh low and close. I turned and walked out. I didn't need to see more. I'd already seen enough. It wasn't just cheating. It was worse. It was contempt. I sat in my car for what felt like hours, hands on the wheel, engine off, trying to slow my breathing, trying not to cry, or scream, or drive to some motel just to disappear. I couldn't feel my hands. It hit me then. This was real. This was actually happening. There wasn't going to be some twist where I was wrong. There wasn't going to be some confession that she felt guilty and wanted to fix it. She had already decided. She had already stepped out of the marriage, not with hesitation or regret, but with full laughter and open disrespect. The worst part? It looked easy for her. She looked free, like she had shed something heavy, like I was the weight she'd finally dropped. I didn't go home, couldn't. I drove aimlessly for hours, watching empty gas stations and quiet neighborhoods blur past my headlights. Somewhere around 2 a.m., I pulled into a 24-hour diner, one of those sad places that smells like burnt toast and regret. I sat in a booth, ordered a coffee, and stared out the window. At some point, the waitress asked if I was okay. I lied, said I was fine. That was the moment the sadness started to fade, and something colder crept in. Resolve. I wasn't going to confront her. I wasn't going to storm in and ask her why or cry or beg for the truth. I had the truth. I'd heard it. In her voice. In her laughter. In the way she leaned into him like it was the most natural thing in the world. She wasn't mine anymore. Maybe she never really was. All the little things, our inside jokes, our late-night takeout traditions, the way she used to put her freezing feet on me under the covers, they didn't matter. Not to her. She had replaced me in her mind already. She wasn't confused. She wasn't struggling. She was gone. And I needed to accept that. I pulled out a notepad from my glove box that I usually kept for work and started writing. Not legal notes. Not a plan yet. Just thoughts. Memories. Questions that didn't deserve answers anymore. Did she ever love me? When did I stop being enough? Was it Denver? Did I miss the moment she changed? I wrote until the ink smeared from my own palm, and then I ripped the page out and threw it away. I wasn't going to let this break me. I wasn't going to be the guy who stays while she lives a double life. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of spinning it all into some "it just happened" excuse. She made her choice. Deliberate, calculated, public, and I saw it. I felt it. And now, I was done waiting. People think when something like this happens, you explode, yell, pack a bag, throw her stuff on the lawn, demand answers, slam doors, burn pictures. I didn't do any of that. There was no confrontation, no final argument, no last straw. Just silence. I didn't go home after that night. Not right away. I stopped by at 4 a.m. Only long enough to pick up a few things. She was asleep when I walked in. Or pretending to be. The bedroom door was cracked just wide enough for me to see her face turned toward the wall. Her body curled slightly, like she was hugging herself. I didn't say a word. Didn't wake her. I grabbed a gym bag from the closet and filled it with what I needed. Passport, documents, some cash, charger, toiletries, a few shirts, a jacket. I left the ring on the bathroom sink. Not out of pettiness, just clarity. She could wake up to the version of her life that she created. I walked out before the sun came up, locking the door behind me for the last time. That wasn't running. It was removal. She had already left the marriage weeks ago. I was just catching up. And I was done being the fallback, the placeholder, the background character in her shiny new life. It was time I stepped out of the story she was writing and started my own. By noon, I had crossed state lines. I paid cash for everything: gas, coffee, the rental car. My phone stayed off. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. Not even my brother. Not yet. I stopped in a small coastal town. Quiet, no chain stores, the kind of place with one post office and a diner that serves breakfast all day. The motel had keycards so old they barely worked. The windows had floral curtains, and the shower screamed when you turned it on. But I didn't care. It was a place that wasn't ours. It had no memories, no echoes of fights, no scent of her perfume on the pillows. I used a different name on the rental agreement. Technically, I didn't have to, but it made me feel like I was putting space between me and the version of me that let all this happen. Nick Andrews. Gone. Just Nick now. Just a guy in a new town. I slept more in those first 48 hours than I had in the last 6 weeks. No tension in my shoulders. No second-guessing my instincts. No trying to decode text messages or fake smiles. I ate simple food. I listened to the ocean. I stopped flinching every time I heard a phone buzz. That's when I realized something important. I wasn't heartbroken. I was disappointed, yes. Numb. Exhausted. But not devastated. What hurt the most wasn't losing her. It was realizing how long I'd been holding on to a ghost. The real Megan, the one I married, had been gone for a while. Slowly, silently replaced by someone who could lie with a straight face. Someone who could laugh about our life with strangers. Someone who looked me in the eye and asked me to trust her, while giving herself away to someone else. What was left of her wasn't mine to fix. And I wasn't going to try. It wasn't noble. It wasn't brave. It was survival. I spent the next few days doing nothing that looked impressive from the outside, but to me it was the most radical thing I could have done. I deleted the shared calendar app. I changed every password I had, just to separate my life from hers, line by line. I called my bank, opened a new account, transferred what I could. I called a lawyer, not to initiate anything yet, but to ask questions. Quietly, precisely. What would a no-fault divorce look like in my state? What counts as evidence? How does adultery factor into the settlement? The man on the phone was calm, professional, didn't seem surprised by anything I said, which made sense. I was probably the 5th version of me he'd spoken to that month. I booked a longer-term rental, still paid cash. A small cottage, 2 streets from the harbor. It needed work, but the landlord liked me, and I liked the idea of something broken that wasn't my fault. I picked up part-time work fixing boats. Turns out, people in towns like this always need someone who can lift things, follow instructions, and not ask too many questions. The guy who hired me, Dave, was in his 60s, wore sunglasses even on cloudy days, never asked where I came from, just showed me how to tie knots and strip rust from old rails. Said, "If you're here, you're here. Don't matter why." I liked that. I started sleeping better, eating better. I stopped checking her social media, stopped wondering if she noticed I was gone. I knew she did, eventually, but I also knew how it would go. She'd spin it, probably already had. She'd tell friends I snapped, that I was unstable, that I'd always been too intense, too jealous, too suspicious, that I disappeared. She'd cry to them, Play the victim. They'd rally. Tell her I was never good for her. That Brian was a better match anyway. They'd drink wine, post photos, and caption them with things like, "Fresh starts cherry blossom," or "Everything happens for a reason." And they'd believe it, because they didn't hear what I heard that night at the lounge. They didn't see her laugh while reducing me to a caricature. They didn't know how many nights I spent trying to not believe what was right in front of me. But I did. And I made a choice not to react but to remove myself. There's a difference. Reactions are emotional, explosive, messy. They make for good drama but bad decisions. Disappearance? That's deliberate, cold. It's not about hurting them, it's about not giving them access to you anymore. It's quiet power. She didn't get to control how I left. She doesn't get to tell the version of this story where I'm the villain who gave up. I didn't give up. I walked away with nothing but truth in my hands and the sound of her betrayal still ringing in my ears. And I let that be enough. The truth was all I needed. Not closure. Not revenge. Just clarity. The next few weeks blurred together. My hands got rougher. My phone stayed mostly off. I built muscle again. Took long walks. Listened to people talk about boats, tides, fishing spots, and local gossip that didn't include me. It was peaceful. One afternoon, while sanding a hull, Dave looked over and said, "You're getting better at this." I nodded, wiped the sweat from my neck. He said, "You planning to stick around?" I thought about that for a second. I wasn't sure yet. I didn't know what came next. But I knew what didn't. I wasn't going back. Not to that house. Not to that silence. Not to pretending I didn't know what was happening just because it hurt to admit it. I wasn't going to be the guy who forgives because he's too afraid to start over. That guy's gone. Maybe I didn't get justice. Maybe I didn't get apologies. But I got out. And sometimes that's enough. At some point I stopped counting the days. Not because I was healed. Not because it didn't still sting in weird, quiet moments. Like when I'd see a couple laughing over coffee or when I'd roll over in bed and forget, for a split second, that there wasn't anyone there beside me. I stopped counting because it didn't matter anymore. Time was no longer tied to her. I wasn't waiting for an apology. I wasn't hoping she'd reach out with some tearful admission. I wasn't expecting closure wrapped in a bow. I had made peace with not getting the ending I deserved. But then I got a message from someone I hadn't heard from in years. Rachel, an old friend from college. She'd known both me and Megan, though we hadn't spoken since before the wedding. She messaged me on Facebook, of all places. I barely checked the app, but there it was. Simple, almost hesitant. "Hey Nick, is everything okay? I heard some things and wasn't sure what to believe." I stared at it for a long time. "What things?" I replied. "I'm fine. What exactly did you hear?" She didn't answer right away. When she did, it came in a flood. Turns out Megan had been telling people I'd had a breakdown. She said I'd walked out on our marriage with no warning. That I'd become emotionally unstable. That she had tried everything to help me, but I was too far gone. That I had a temper. That I scared her sometimes. Scared her. That part got me. Because no matter what happened, I was never cruel to her. Never raised my voice. Never laid a hand. I gave her space. I asked questions when things didn't add up, but I never made threats. I wasn't perfect, but I wasn't that man. And now, that's who I was in her version of the story. Not the husband she betrayed, but the husband who snapped. Rachel said a mutual friend, someone I barely knew, had posted a cryptic, "Some people just vanish when you need them most," type caption with a picture of Megan and two other women at a wine bar. I guess that was the party line. Nick went off the rails. Nick couldn't handle stress. Nick ghosted her after months of being cold, withdrawn, uncommunicative. Megan, the victim. Megan, the brave survivor. I closed the app, sat in silence, let the rage simmer. Not explode, but settle into something quieter, heavier. She didn't just move on. She rewrote everything. I had left with dignity. I hadn't burned the house down. I hadn't aired the emails I had printed. The screensh *TS. The timeline. I had walked away silently, taking nothing with me but truth. But now that silence was being used as a we*p*n. It wasn't just that she'd betrayed me. She was painting me as unstable so no one would ask why she was already hanging out with Brian. So no one would dig deeper. So no one would connect the dots. And I realized something. She was betting I would stay silent forever. That I wouldn't defend myself. That I'd disappear while she wore my absence like armor. That's when I knew what I had to do. I didn't post a rant online. I didn't text mutual friends some dramatic bombshell. That wasn't my style. I scheduled a meeting with my lawyer. Told him I was ready to file. No-fault divorce was easier, but I had proof. Real proof. Dates. Messages. Photos. That night at Ember. Witnesses. All of it. He looked through everything, flipping slowly, eyebrows lifting slightly every few pages. "You've got a strong case," he said. "You sure you want to go this route?" "Yes. Even if she tries to dispute it, she can try." I wasn't doing this to punish her. I didn't care about the house or the car or the accounts. I didn't even care if she ended up with Brian. I cared about truth. I cared about making sure that whatever lies she spun, there would be one document, filed and signed and official, that said what really happened. So that 20 years from now, when someone pulls it up, they won't see irreconcilable differences. They'll see adultery. That word. Cold. Heavy. Final. I filed under my full legal name. Nicholas Dean Harper. She was served 2 weeks later. I didn't watch it happen. Didn't ask for updates. But I imagined the moment. Her opening the door, expecting a delivery or a friend or maybe even Brian. The envelope. The name on the front. The realization that I wasn't just gone. I was taking control back. I didn't hear from her right away, but I started getting messages from other people. People who had been told I ghosted her. Who had been fed the carefully curated version of the story where I was the unstable one. Now they were confused. I didn't say much, just the truth in as few words as possible. There was infidelity. I stepped away. The divorce filing explains everything. No details. No bitterness. Just facts. Some of them apologized. Some didn't respond. I didn't care. The truth didn't need applause. A few days later, Megan texted me. "Can we talk?" I let it sit there. 3 hours passed. Then another message. "I didn't know you were going to make it public. I thought we agreed not to drag each other." I didn't reply, because no, we didn't agree to anything. I had been silent, respectful, careful. She was the one who dragged me in whispers, in DMs, in girls' nights and wine bars and brunch tables. She had her version. Now I had mine. And mine was backed by documentation, timestamps, and reality. She called the next night. I didn't answer. Let it ring. She left a voicemail. Her voice was soft, like she was trying to sound calm. She asked me to reconsider the filing. Said we should keep things private. That we didn't need to ruin each other. But she'd already tried to ruin me, and I wasn't interested in playing nice so she could preserve the narrative. I was done being the one who kept the peace while she played victim. So I let the voicemail sit in my inbox, untouched. My lawyer called a few days later with an update. She hasn't contested it. Looks like she's letting it go through. That didn't surprise me. She wasn't going to stand in court and lie under oath. Not when I had evidence. Not when the person she became in those messages and photos was so far removed from the image she tried to project. Letting it go through meant avoiding the spotlight. Avoiding questions. Avoiding Brian sitting in the back row of a courtroom while her whole facade crumbled. I signed the final set of documents with a steady hand. No shaking. No second-guessing. This was mine now. The ending. Not hers. Mine. She had told her story. Now I'd written mine in ink. The truth was no longer mine to hold privately while she twisted it for sympathy. It was filed. Certified. Admissible. Real. And that was the shift. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need to make her feel what I felt. I just needed the truth to outlast the lie. And it would. Because it was on paper now. Because I took back control. Because when she looks back on all of it, the affair, the games, the escape, she won't see a man who snapped. She'll see the man who walked away, told the truth, and refused to be rewritten. And that's what freedom feels like. Not explosive, not dramatic, just solid, final, mine. Months later, I heard through a mutual contact that Brian had left her. No warning, just gone. She lost her job not long after, apparently trying to mix personal and professional lives like they were interchangeable. The social circle that once rallied around her grew quieter. No one wants to be close to someone who wears a collapsing life like a mask. And me? I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't gloat. I felt nothing. Not even pity. Just a sense of distance, like watching a fire burn from a safe place. I was already rebuilding slow, steady. I'd taken up boat repair full-time. The air smelled like salt and sawdust. It was honest work. I met people who didn't ask questions, and I didn't offer stories. It was peaceful. Finally. Now I wake up without dread. I cook breakfast. I walk into town. No more wondering who's lying. No more checking for signs. She may still be telling her version, spinning it into something survivable, but that doesn't matter. I'm not in it anymore. That story doesn't belong to me. I didn't disappear. I reclaimed myself. I stepped out of a version of life that was never real and into one that actually is. And for the first time in a long time, I don't want to go back. There's nothing there for me, only echoes and shadows. I've stopped explaining. I've stopped apologizing. I live in truth now. Quiet. Simple. Mine.